Hey cats, it's your Midsole man Eddbud here. Today an initial review on a brand new shoe that's launching very soon. This is the Puma FAST-R NITRO ELITE 3. Really enjoyed the V2 version of this shoe last year. It was light, it was nimble, and it was very aggressive. 16 months down the line we got this new version of the shoe which is a hell of a lot lighter. There's some significant changes here. We've still got the protruding plate at the front, a serious heel bevel this time, loads less weight. Is it a hit or a miss? Thanks for tuning in, people, always appreciated. Hit that subscribe button if you're yet to do so. Also give this video a thumbs up, like, and drop us a comment as well to help with that YouTube algorithm. Dankeschön. For my UK 11 or US 12, these weigh in at 210 grams or 7.4 ounces. So that is significantly lighter than the V2 version of this shoe. That was one of the main detractors, I suppose, from that last version. The drop though does stay the same. In my size of the shoe I've got about 42mm in the heel and about 34mm up front, so it's an 8mm drop. So I think I had 273 grams in the V2, so a 63 gram reduction is quite something. Hard to believe, in fact. Shaving off 2 ounces of weight from different versions of the shoe is something I don't think's ever really happened on any of the reviews on the channel so far. Of course, sample size for this one is 40mm at the back, so it's championship race certified, but not that really matters to the mortals, right? I'm measuring about 11.8 centimeters up front at the widest point and about 8.7 in the heel. I think the FAST-R 2 is about 12 centimeters in the forefoot and about 8.2 in the heel. So we've got quite a bit of extra width there in the heel. I think that's probably needed as well due to that heel bevel. I would go true to size in this shoe. Yes, it does taper somewhat on the lateral side of the toe box. Doesn't seem to be quite so aggressive though over on the medial side. No need to go a half size up or down in the FAST-R 3. This is a full Nitro Elite midsole right across the board. It's the eTPU foam though. It's not a Puma based material as they were using in earlier versions, or at least version 1. I think version 2 used this exact same material. They've just carved off lots of it this time. So I got a short A score of about 24, which is very soft in comparison to some other foams. But the rubber on the shoe is actually a little bit different. I got some very low readings here, around about 50 up here and about 42 in the heel. There are some foams that aren't that soft, okay? Just to let you know, this is a shoe that's been sent over to me by Puma for review, but they're not vetting my views before my valued viewers get to see them. Okay, stats out the way, we'll talk about the upper first. So as per the FAST-R 2, the upper here is almost football-like, really. Is a nice kind of glove fit, padding only where it's needed. The material here is incredibly thin, very breathable, though strangely has some decent structure to it. There are only minimal uses of that power tape type material that we saw in the first or second versions of the shoe. There's some light reinforcement around the eyelets, and you do have a very small traditional heel counter back here, so it's not just completely flop city here. The tongue itself is wafer thin, probably the thinnest material I've seen on the channel so far. There's next to no padding aside from the Puma logo here, just provides a little bit of protection on the top of the foot. Now we have got lace cutouts on the tongue. There's a standard one in the center here and then 2 others towards the sides of the tongue a little bit further up. Just helps to keep their tongue sat right on top of the foot. I didn't get any tongue slide whatsoever in this shoe. Kind of ingenious stuff really, adding a feature there by not adding any more materials. Now Puma have included 2 sets of laces in this shoe. There's these standard kind of slightly stretchy laces and these serrated laces in a sort of mint colour. Those are my preference, I have to say. I got the best lockdown using these serrated laces. It's almost like Todd Folker at Puma was listening to me when he made this shoe. Absolutely spot on here. It's so easy to get a good lockdown. Much easier, in fact, than having to mess around with the laces, those very thin and weedy laces that you've got in the Adios Pro 4. So made to measure lockdown here, one of the best really of recent time. There's no bunching in the materials for me as well. I've got a slightly narrow foot, but the upper just disappears when I'm out running in this one. Ultra weave, ultra good. There's no over-the-top nitro logos or anything on this shoe. The Puma pouncing there on the medial side of the toe box, and you've got the standard logo here on the lateral side. I think it's probably easily the best looking Puma launch colorway that we've had. It really is striking. You just kind of forget that there's an upper on this shoe, really. It is super light, and I think it contributes to the overall weight loss on this model. I'll give it a 3 out of 3 for upper. There's nothing I'd change here. Midsole, midsole. Midsole now. So with the FAST-R in the past, we've had this fully decoupled sort of heel and forefoot section to the midsole. That's not the case this time. There is foam running between the two parts. The ride is then slightly more traditional due to that, though straight off the bat, I'm not going to recommend this shoe to anybody that's got a more aggressive heel strike. I think it's just going to feel a little bit clunky if you are one of those runners. I think if you're a stride runner and you're kind of landing on the midfoot there, kind of bouncing off the pavement or the road, a little bit like the Metaspeed Sky Paris, for example, you're going to get the best out of this shoe. The strange thing is that because of the geometry of the shoe, it does feel like you can kind of do that, but I think if you're a cadence runner and you're expecting to kind of roll through your stride there, it's just not going to work all that well, and that might be what a lot of people do towards the end of a marathon. I did find it super smooth when you're landing right on the midfoot and then really powering through using that sort of protruding plate here at the front. That softer foam in the heel here does cushion the blow, quickly gets you onto that forefoot. That's what this shoe feels like. It really wants to get you onto this larger section of the foam here. The push-off's really good here. You do get a sense of the plate as well below your foot. It's one of those shoes where you really can feel it. Some of them recently you just can't feel it at all, like the Vaporfly Next Percent 4, for example. That one just felt a little bit too nice, really. Too genteel. This is a bit more of a rebel. Maybe like the Vaporfly Next Percent 4's like Pat Boone, and this is like Link Ray. One thing I found, I can run extremely fast in this shoe, which you would expect when it's called the FAST-R, right? Doing some like 100 and 200 meter bursts there, it was kind of crazy, really. You can really crank up the pace. At marathon tempo, it was notably easier for me to run in this shoe. I barely even crept above like 130 beats per minute, which is just mental, really. 730 per mile target pace, and it just felt really great. I had to check that the heart rate sensor was in fact working. It just seemed to freeze around about 129, and you know, it doesn't normally do that. Did check it was working correctly when I finished. It started to drop further once I'd finished that mile rep. So Puma really does have something special on its hands and feet here. Like I said, I always liked the FAST-R NITRO ELITE 2 features. It was exciting, it was fun and sort of nimble, but I mean, this lower weight really does take advantage of all of the great things we had in that shoe, and to be able to do it for longer as well. I do like the inclusion of the weight relieved plate here. They've even trimmed off sections of that to minimise the weight further. Let's be honest here, guys, this one's coming in at almost the same weight as the Asics Metaspeed Sky Paris, one of the lightest shoes in my size. I mean, you're only 10 grams off the Vaporfly Next Percent 4, and that's got less heel stack than this shoe. I didn't find this shoe all that unstable across different paces. Felt quite natural to me. It might not be the case to you. Let's not forget, all runners are a little bit different. I do like the fact that they've protected the protruding plate here by extending the rubber over, up and around that plate. I haven't really felt like I'm gonna jab it into anything or fall over at all. It just felt like a very comfortable offering. So if you're worried about the weird nature of the plate here, I don't think it's gonna really bother you all that much. This bounce to the shoe, it's very forgiving. I really do like this eTPU material, but I do think it's a shoe that's gonna demand some pretty good form off the bat. It constantly wants you to increase that stride length, push hard on the forefoot and propel yourself forward, and without the sustained ability to keep that up over distance, you might not get the best out of it. So it's certainly a shoe that wants you to run fast, and FAST-R in fact. As such, I don't feel that this has quite got the same versatile appeal as the FAST-R 2. That was a little bit more forgiving if you were gonna fall into the heel. For me, so far in my testing, it does feel like one that lowers the effort level. It is fun, it's propulsive, it does take a little bit of getting used to. Better for me, certainly, than the Metaspeed Edge Paris. Far more propulsive and fun and exciting than the Vaporfly 4. And that shoe has proven to be one of the worst for durability that I've tested in years. So this probably on par with that Metaspeed Sky Paris for me. I'll give it a 2.9 out of 3 for the midsole so far. Outsole wise, Puma have minimised the amount of rubber here. It is a much thinner application than you might be expecting, I suppose, from a FAST-R update. It's slightly patterned up here in the forefoot. It's a little bit tacky, a little bit sticky, though I found it very assured and does well to protect the foam that we've got up front here. Though don't expect that Puma logo to stick around long. You can see here after 10 miles already starting to disappear. The heel rubber, though extremely durable, is actually a touch softer than we've seen in previous versions of Puma's shoes. The two strips here in the heel helping to provide some protection, but it is pretty exposed back here. Pretty much all of your action is going on here when it comes to rubber, right in the forefoot. They are recessed a little bit into the foam as well, and I am seeing some early kind of paint wear here, though there's no creasing to speak of at all within the midsole material. You always see a little bit of paint flaking off, especially when you've got a slightly thicker application of paint across the midsole foam. The plate is fully exposed here, so I don't recommend running on any areas with like gravel or stones. You're just going to damage that plate or possibly break it. This is made for the road and pavement, and I would suggest sticking to that to avoid any imperial entanglements. So I think the heel area is my main concern really here. The grip is great. It does feel nice on cornering. I think it's going to take the brunt of the marathon miles though later in a race. So be aware and don't get too upset if you see some tearing there. I think the Puma grip compound was originally intended as like trail shoe rubber, but they just decided to put it on everything. So don't need to worry about this lasting out. Puma reckon you're going to get like 300 kilometers or 200 miles out of this shoe. I think you probably get more than that, to be honest with you. I think they're selling it a little short there. I've always found that on Puma's recent shoes, you're getting like nowhere at 100 miles. And it feels just as good as it did at the start. The cut though is a bit thinner here, so I guess we'll see after some further testing whether we get a little bit more wear. We're just going to have to wait and see after some more miles. Loving it so far though. I'll give it a 2.9 out of 3 for the outsole. Some good grip, but there is lots of exposed midsole and a thinner application of rubber too. Value now. Yeah, there's always a fly in the ointment with a review, isn't there? Now, this shoe is $300 in the US, 260 quid here in the UK. So that is a fair wodge of cash, of bread, of spondulics, of moolah. When you consider the Alphafly 3 here in the UK is 285 quid. I think it's $285 as well when I've just checked. I think it's a bit of a bold move from Puma. They must have some significant faith in the data that they've generated on this shoe to back up that pricing. There's some studies been done. I'm not going to go too far into that stuff, but they did find that this shoe is beneficial on average for runners over the Nike shoe. Now the Alphafly 3 is one of those shoes that is like my favourite really, I suppose, over the last year or so, though you can't help but think that perhaps the advantage that this shoe is showing is due to the fact that it's quite a bit lighter, like an ounce or so lighter than the Nike shoe. So I think it's either going to be a type of shoe that's going to really work well for you or not. Let's be frank, the studies that we see on marathons, like 94% of people are using a heel strike, the overwhelming majority, right? So that can mean lots of things to lots of people. From my perspective, a heel strike might mean that, you know, you're transferring your weight onto the foot underneath your hip. It might be that you make contact with the ground perhaps with the heel, but the majority of the weight transfer is, you know, on the midfoot perhaps. So one runner's heel strike is not necessarily another's, but I think the beveled nature of the heel here might put a few people off. Think about like the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 3. Again, a very significant heel bevel there. It isn't quite so significant here. Some of the Hoka models of recent years too, so only you will know whether this is going to work for you. Quality wise, out the box, the shoe's fantastic actually. There's no dodgy stitching, like glue seepage anywhere. Does feel like a nice quality item in hand, though you would expect that at 260 notes, right? I have a feeling this one might be okay durability wise. Pumas in the past have been good. It's not a Puma based midsole material, don't forget. That stuff just seems to get obliterated the instant that you use it, and it was great in the last couple of Puma race shoes, the FAST-R 2 and the Deviate Nitro Elite 3. So fingers crossed on the durability on this one. 260 though, it's still a lot of money, and I can see why Puma are hitting it really hard on the advertising and also with those efficiency stats as well that have been released. I will place a link to those in the description. As such, I'm going to give this a 2.7 out of 3 for value. I think that for some people it's going to absolutely hit the spot. It's going to be one of those must-try shoes, and for others I think it's just going to be a little bit too scary with this heel bevel here. Okay cats, if I've totaled the scores up correctly, that gives us 11.5 out of 12 for the FAST-R Nitro Elite 3 from Puma. Can't stress how light this shoe is. It hardly felt like anything was in the box, in fairness. I think I've received it a little bit too late for me to go for it in the Manchester Marathon this weekend. Trying stuff that's new on race day is just a bad idea. But certainly we'll be testing it out further in the near future. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one down in the comments. Quick musical interlude for you. One of the most overlooked albums of the last couple of years. Got to be from Miles Kane. Absolute banger called One Man Band. I think he even did some shows where he just had like a backing tape or something and he came on and played his guitar and sang. I kind of like the idea of that, you know, these very fast kind of guerrilla gigs, you know, where you just come in and quickly play and you're just sort of very directly connected. You can get around, do loads of gigs in a day, that kind of thing. Really love the track Baggio, which is all about Roberto Baggio. It was an influential figure for Miles Kane as he was growing up. The Italian footballer with the cool hair. Though I think didn't he miss a penalty? I think it was in USA 94 perhaps. Baggio's a great track though. There's some stirring melodies here. Absolutely fantastic production as well. Always feels very old school and lo-fi with Miles Kane, but the guitar parts are always really direct. Nice use of fuzz as well on some of the guitars. Just makes for a really exciting kind of spectacle of a track. And there's lots of those on this album as well. You should go and check it out. You often see it discounted on vinyl in places like HMV. People just overlooked it completely. And it's a great, great collection of songs. Go and check it out, people. One Man Band by Miles Kane. People, thank you for watching today's video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But also give this video a thumbs up like as well. Drop us a comment to tell me what you think about the FAST-R 3. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you